I definitely think that one of the main problems with defending Commander Philip Graves in a lot of the videos that I've done about him is the fact that after he killed, or after he attacked, should I say, Task Force 141, Ghost and Soap, and betrayed them, he went on a killing spree in Las Almas, Mexico. And that is actually one of the main things that everyone comments when I talk about Graves being redeemed, or I talk about the Shadow Company, or I talk about why Philip Graves was right, or anything like that. Any topic that involves the Shadows, Philip Graves, and any turn to the good side or somehow making a spin-off game on them, everyone always talks about, well, he massacred people. Well, how do you explain that he massacred Mexican civilians in Las Almas, Mexico? And it's true. And I've ignored that, and I've not talked about that topic on purpose, because when I'm exploring these scenes and kind of breaking down some of the missions that we've seen play out with Graves and how the betrayal happened and how it could have been avoided and how he didn't want to do it, me being able to grab that and turn that into something positive can't be done if I include him massacring people and everything that happened afterwards. So I'm trying to see it from a different perspective, a different point of view. Now, I've said that we'll talk about the massacre in another video or later on, so that's today. I want to sit down and address the biggest elephant in the room as to maybe why Commander Graves cannot be redeemed for so many people, will not be redeemed for so many people, and eventually will die a pretty bad death at some point in the Modern Warfare series. I think as much as I like Commander Graves and as much as I would like for him to continue doing his thing and really getting a spin-off game kind of surrounding PMCs and him being one of the leaders of that, I don't think that'll ever happen. And I think Graves' situation is almost written in the stars, if you want to say it like that, because the writers did kind of back themselves into a corner by making him or turning him into a full-on villain when he did started killing civilians in Mexico. Now, the mission alone is one of those missions that I absolutely despise in Call of Duty. It is one of the worst Call of Duty missions that I've ever played in the entire franchise. I love Modern Warfare 2, but that mission sucks ass. And so when I first played it, I wasn't paying attention to the dialogue. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on. I wasn't paying attention to who he was killing. I just wasn't. Not because the story wasn't interesting, but because that goddamn mission had me on my toes, and I can't even remember how many times I died trying to pass it. Like, it was terrible. But on a second playthrough, on a second rewatch of that mission, I noticed that, yeah, he's going around and he shoots a couple civilians. The Graves fan in me thought, maybe I can spin this. Maybe he wasn't just killing civilians. Maybe there was a point to it.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now, let me explain that. We know that Las Almas, Mexico is corrupt. We know that sicarios and cartel members are there every day. They live there. The town is run by Valeria, El Sin Nombre. We know that it's just a corrupt town and it needs help and it's struggling. And some towns like that, some areas like that in Mexico are a little bit more heavy on the sicario front. And Las Almas was one of those. So I thought to myself, maybe the little residential area that he went in, the little area that Graves and his shadows were operating in, were full of corrupt policemen, sicarios, and that's why they were there asking him, where's Hassan? Where are the two, operators that were here? And maybe Graves and the Shadow Company thought these guys are bad and corrupt and messed up anyway, so it doesn't matter. We are going to kill them, and nobody's even going to bat an eye, and nobody's even going to care. So I thought I could spin it in that way, because he does kill some sicarios, he does kill some corrupt police officials. And I thought, well, at least that way you can kind of explain why he did the killing. You can explain why he had to take those people out. Now, is that the proper way to get justice? No, you arrest them and you take them in. But they are sicarios and they are corrupt policemen who hurt civilians, who hurt regular people sometimes, maybe not by choice, maybe by accident, maybe by crossfire, whatever. So maybe it was a good idea, or it was okay for Graves and his shadows to kill these people. But that theory for me fell apart, because even when you're playing the mission, in the subtitles, when some of the people that are about to be executed are talking, it says civilian male, civilian female. So the game is basically telling us that those people are civilians. And then when it's a sicario, it says sicario male. And then when it's a policeman that's corrupt, it says corrupt police officer. So it is confirmed 1,000% that he kills police officers, he kills sicarios, and he kills regular civilians. Now, some of the images are gruesome. Some of like a woman laid down with her neck cut. Some people are shot and laid against the wall. It's a brutal massacre. I mean, it is. I can't dilly-dally around it. It's not a brutal massacre. You know, I understand. I get it. I see it. Now, we can talk about the consequences, right? The consequences of this situation is that Commander Graves maybe cannot and won't ever be redeemed because of that one single action. They painted him as a true villain when they did that. Everything before that could be blurred. Everything before that can be seen as, oh, maybe he was doing this. Oh, maybe he was trying to help. Oh, maybe, you know. But this is a straight up massacre, and that cannot be blurred. I wanted to try to blur it in a way, but I couldn't. So it can be blurred. It is what it is, and we got to call it what it was. So because of that, maybe Call of Duty and Modern Warfare, the writers, will not redeem Graves, will give him a brutal death at some point during the Modern Warfare series. And like I mentioned earlier, his tale is basically told. And how is it going to end for Graves? I think because of this massacre, because of what he did in Mexico, and because maybe Task Force 141 is kind of going to step away from Graves and not really care too much about him because they got bigger fish to fry. I think that ultimately Commander Graves falls on the eyes of Alejandro Vargas and his Mexican Special Forces, Los Vaqueros. I think that Graves will have to pay for everything that he did, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, whether any of us like it or not. But Alejandro Vargas is not the type to let things go. I don't think so. Now, Graves went into his home, captured his men, took over his base, beat the shit out of them, and went into Las Almas and started killing civilians. He killed a lot of the people there. Now, I'm sure Alejandro Vargas isn't going to have a single issue with him killing any sicarios, killing any policemen that were corrupt. But when he's looking at mom, dads, aunts being killed of children that were in Las Almas, disrupting his town, he's not going to take kindly to that. You know, he's going to deal with Valeria in the way that he needs to deal with Valeria. But I can assure you that if he has an opportunity to take out Shadow Company or take out Commander Graves, he's going to take it. If Commander Graves is ever in the vicinity of Los Vaqueros or ever in the vicinity of Alejandro Vargas, Alejandro is taking out Commander Graves. And that is a true consequence of his actions back down in Las Almas, Mexico. So I think that's kind of how it's going to play out. Do I like that story? I don't know. Maybe not, you know, because truly I would like to see Graves somehow go on a redemption story. Like I've mentioned a million times, I really would like to see that. But is it in his cards? Maybe not. Maybe not with the writers of Call of Duty. Maybe they don't have that much of a vision and they're just going to kind of end it here soon enough. But Commander Graves' actions in Las Almas, Mexico cannot be ignored. As much as I would like for them to be ignored sometimes, they cannot. And you can attribute the turn and his actions and what he did in Las Almas to really bad writing, to just BS, to trying to force you to dislike him or something like that. And I can agree with all of the above. But they did happen. They are canon to the story. And now he will have to face some consequences for that. The only way that I see Commander Graves not facing any consequences for what he did is if Call of Duty and the writers and all of us pretend like Mexico didn't happen and it wasn't that big of a deal.